Hey YouTube, this is your captain, back again, and today we have my KOZMO deck profile. Now, this is such a fun deck, it really is, and it has the best matchup with every single other deck in the format. I started playing this around the end of last format, and that was when KOZMOs were at full power and everyone was playing it. Even though it wasn't the best deck, Monarchs were the best deck of last format. But with this most recent ban list, we got Dark Destroyer to 1 and we got E-Telly to 1. So a lot of people kind of just backed away from this deck because they didn't think it was as powerful anymore, but I disagree. I really think that this deck has a lot of potential and, like I said, really fun. So let's get right into it. To start, we play 3 KOZMO Tin Can. He's pretty self-explanatory to be running at 3 because he's the fastest cog in your engine. At the end phase, you can pay 500 life points to reveal 3 KOZMO cards in your deck, and your opponent chooses 1 at random. So you get 1 at hand, and then you get 2 sent to the grave. It's just really good for pushing you farther into the game, and it's pretty much your fastest resource. You run 2 KOZMO Strawman. I really like this card. He's really good, has a really good effect, but I only use him for pushing for game most times, or I guess setting up board more. So I kind of only use him when I know that my opponent cannot negate his effect, because I can pay 500 life points to special summon any banished KOZMO monster, and you're going to go plus either way off of that, because if you special summon a ship, you can use him as a beater for the turn, and at the end phase, since his effects are negated, and he's destroyed at the end phase through Strawman effect, the ship will die, and then the ship's effect will banish himself to special summon a lower level ship. But if you special summoned a psychic type monster from Strawman effect, you can banish out that pilot even though its effects are negated, because they banish themselves as cost for an effect, and the effect resolves off field. So you can still special summon that monster. I run 2 Sword Trooper. I really came around with this card. It's pretty nice. Pay 1,000, special summon any of your psychic type KOZMO monsters from graveyard. You know, if you pitched any of them with tin cans, such as Dark Lady, one of the new Shining Victories cards that were released. She's a 5-star psychic type, and if by paying 1,000 life points, you can get her back from graveyard permanently. To finish up the level 3s, I run 2 Farm Girl. Pretty self-explanatory. She's a really good card. I wouldn't run her at 3 because I almost always want to keep her in deck until I have E-Telly, or I know that I can push for game. Just to round out all of the pilots, I had to run 2 of the Wicked Witch. She's really good at stopping my opponent from gaming me, especially if you're in a tight place. I kind of try and keep at least 1 in deck, because Slip Rider can go into her, and any of the other ships can go into her. And for the last pilot, I run 1 KOZMO Dark Lady. I originally ran her at 2 because she's really good and I love her effect, but I've been really playing around with certain things, and I like her more in the graveyard for Sword Trooper effect than I do like her being banished. So I kind of just roll around her being in graveyard. I'm more concerned in making sure that she's in graveyard at most times so I can abuse her effect a lot. As for the ships now, I run 3 Slip Rider. I really like this card. There's a lot of decks this format that rely heavily on their field spells or other spell cards, and either way, people are running back row, and getting rid of back row is a good idea. When it came to running ships, I really wanted to run 3 of one of the ships, and it really came down to which ship do I think has the better effect. That would be a lot more useful to me, more times than not, and that happened to be Slip Rider, because destroying a spell and trap card on the field is usually really good. I run 2 of the Landwalker, which is another card that came out in the Shining Victory set with Dark Lady. He is a really good combo piece where if you have KOZMO Town on field, and any other KOZMO card would be destroyed by battle or card effect, like Raigeki, or by battle, you can use his effect to destroy any other, direct that destruction to any other KOZMO card on the field. So you can use his effect to destroy KOZMO Town to avoid destruction of anyone, and then use KOZMO Town's effect to just search for another KOZMO Town, or if you really want to go into a combo piece, power play, use Cosmo Town effect to search for anything you want. As for the one-ofs, I play one Forerunner for the level 7, level 8, rest in peace, my Dark Destroyer, he's so good, love him. One Eclipser, I really thought about running Eclipser more than one because he's a 3k beater, but then it kind of came down to that same scenario. Which ship would I really want to run more of because they have a better effect? But it's a lot of times where I'll have him on field and I will lock out my opponent if they have a lot of trap cards on field. Finally, I don't like the card that much, but it's really powerful. So I've been testing him out a lot. Cosmo Dark Planet, pretty good. I mean, you have to banish cards equal to the level of Dark Planet or more from your hand specifically, and can't be specified by other ways. But 4,000 is really hard for people to get over, especially since it can't be targeted. So you have to non-target it, banish, or put it back into deck somehow. So what's really cool about this deck is that you have spell negation, trap negation, and monster negation. That's crazy. You literally have all these different resources to use and just to hinder your opponent one by one. So that's all the monsters. That's 22 monsters. As for the spells, pretty self-explanatory. 3 Cosmo Town, probably the most powerful spell card in your deck. Really, really, really good field spell. And that's why I run 2 Terraforming, so it's technically 5 targets in your deck. I run 2 Allure of Darkness, because now that this card's at 3, it's just super broken for draw power. Draw 2 cards, banish 1 dark monster, and you have 11 darks in this monster lineup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's half of your 22 monsters. So I think running it at 2 is a perfect balance. I run 1 Reasoning because I like free monsters. I run 1 Raigeki because kind of have to. 1 Emergency Teleport because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 targets for E-Tele, and even though you usually want to go for Farm Girl, maybe you want to go for Tin Can at end phase because you drew it first to help you really get into your game. I just recently put this card in Limiter Removal. It's really good after reading the effect. All machine type monsters on your field, their attack is doubled until the end phase, and that includes other machine type monsters that were summoned to the field after this card's activation. So you can kind of just keep on banishing out and keep getting those other monsters, and their attacks will be doubled. So that's really easy to OTK someone with this deck, especially since you can already hit them for about 4k in one turn, especially with one guy who has 4k, so it just makes it easier for me to game them. Plus it's at 1, so you don't see it a lot, but it's just a fun tech card. And I run 1 Gold Sarcophagus. This card also came off the ban list, and I love it. It's so good being able to banish any Cosmo card I want, and then use Cosmo Town to just get that Cosmo monster. I only run it at 1 because I will only use this card when I have Cosmo Town. Kind of like a combo piece, because that way I can choose whatever I want. I can choose the best scenario. I can get any single Cosmo card that I want because I just have to pay the life points just to get them back. I don't have to wait the 2 turns. That's all the spells that I run. As for traps, it's pretty self-explanatory as well. 2 Call the Haunted, 2 Cosmojo. I would run 3 if I had the money to have 3, but I think at most, if I were to get a 3rd one, I would side in the 3rd one depending on who I'm playing against. I run 1 Bottomless Trap Hole, 1 Warning, and then my favorite card of the deck, 1 Macro KOZMO. Now, that kind of makes sense because the title of this deck profile was Macro KOZMO. It's a play on words because think of this as my Vanitys emptiness. Instead of choosing Vanitys emptiness, which hinders my opponent, I chose Macro KOZMO because I can play around it a lot more than my opponent can. Cards are getting banished. So long as I have Cosmo Town on field, I can just get my guys back, while most other decks can't. And they really, really rely on graveyard effects. So as long as I have graveyard already there before I activate this card's effect, instead I have like Planet, you know, you're making sure that they can't use their graveyard and they can't use 1 or 3 spell cards because you already have Cosmos in graveyard as activation cost. This card pretty much shuts down a lot of decks, and you really don't go into your extra deck that often. It's really, this deck just has a lot of combo cards. Nothing's really bad draw in this deck, except for Planet, but whatever. As for extra deck, you don't go into it much, except for the rank 3 to get over Dante, and then Infinity with your Slip Riders. But, I mean, I guess it's fun just to have cards. You have Levier, just in case, for your rank 3s to get any of your banished pilots. You have Giga Brilliant, which you will immediately overlay for Digital Bug Corbage. His effect is that you can detach 1 to shuffle it back into deck 1 defense position monster, and most times Dante is in defense position. And then he has a second effect where if on your turn, if any monster switches their battle position from like attack to defense or defense to attack, his effect is to reattach a insect type Xseed monster to him. So he gets another material and is allowed to shuffle in another card in defense position. That's really cool, and that's really strong. As for the rank 5s, kind of really situational, and I just put them in there for the sake of having them, being able to attack directly, 2 Pleiades, being able to burn someone, and then the M7 to overlay with Pleiades, and the Gaia Charger to overlay with Volcasaurus after burning, so he can attack. But the main extra deck card that you really run, besides the Corbage, is Cyber Dragon Nova to go into Cyber Dragon Infinity, because he's a broken card, and there's almost no better extra deck card to go into for this deck. So I think this deck has a really, really good chance of being top 3. Top 2, everyone says that Dragon Busters are going to be like really, really good, but I don't care about that. He's a 3,000 fusion monster that has to target to banish, and a lot of my ships can't be targeted. Like, I really am not afraid of this deck, and I'm excited to go to regionals and to play into all these tournaments with all these players who think they're amazing, and then just get annihilated by Cosmos, because there's space. What deck can play in space? You're versing space. That's kind of hard to beat. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. If you did, please leave a like down below. It really helps out the channel, and please leave what 2 cents you have for this deck, what you think I should change up if possible. But with that, this is your captain, signing out. Have a nice day, everyone.